Mark.
All right, and welcome back. We are here with Richard Botkin, author, filmmaker, expert on the war in Vietnam, and a venerable wealth management. How you doing today, Richard?
Mark, great to be here. Thanks for having
me. I used one of your vocabulary words.
Thank you, sir. I'm
venerable.
proud of you.
What does it mean anyway?
It means trusted, established.
Good. Okay, I used it correctly.
Yeah,
then.
like an old building or that kind of thing.
So, Richard, welcome. Appreciate you coming down here this morning, and I want you to tell us about your Ride the Thunder project. It's an exciting project, but tell us about that and what led to that Ride the Thunder idea.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. I'm an old Marine. I did not serve in Vietnam. I want everyone to know I'm not a combat veteran, so no medals or anything. But I fell in with a group of my mentors who were all Vietnam veterans and came across their stories, and over a course of a couple of months, in 2003, stumbled onto what I thought was a pretty compelling story about American Marine officers who were advisors to the Vietnamese Marine Corps. What I learned up until that time is no one knows anything about the Vietnam War. And we intentionally don't study it because it didn't have a favorable outcome, like World War II. Everyone loves World War II. Good war. We killed all the bad guys. Everybody was involved. It's amazing the contrast between World War II and Vietnam. Maybe we'll get to that. But so I fell in with these American Marine officers and their Vietnamese counterparts. And when I got into it, it took me 5 years to write this book, 4 trips to Vietnam. I learned more than anything, number one, that 99% of the American men who served in Vietnam served honorably. We won every battle. Everyone knows that. But what people don't understand is the curious set of circumstances that undid the war for our South Vietnamese allies. Maybe we'll get to that. But in uncovering the story, what I learned most was what the Vietnamese went through. And nobody outside the American Vietnamese community has a full appreciation for that. These people hated the communists. They did not want to be communists. They fought for a long time, most of them honorably. They weren't portrayed that way in the press. And then we cut aid off to these guys when they lost. My main American character, Mark, is a guy named Le Ba Bin. He lives in San Jose. Fought the communists 13 straight years. 13 straight years. If you're an American, if you're in the Army like Dutch, in the other room, you went to Vietnam for 12 months. If you're a Marine, you went for 13. If you were a lifer, you might go for a second, maybe third time. The Vietnamese had no end of tour. My main character, 13 years in combat, wounded 9 times. The only break he got, he came to America for 6 months.
So the book and the movie, they're a contrast to the way most of us, I guess, learned about Vietnam through the movies that we have seen traditionally. They have a little bit of an anti-American slant to them, and your book is in the process of changing the way America views the war in Vietnam.
Well, that's our goal, and it's an ambitious goal, and I don't know how we can quantify that. When you set a goal, it should be quantifiable. That one's tough. People don't read. They're not going to read my book. Most of the books that are out there are anti-American. There's no question anymore that the media was biased, that many on the political side had a anti-American or even pro-communist approach to the war. What we find, though, is that the historical record is not going to be determined by books. All you have to do is watch Fox News, and when they get that guy Jesse Waters out on college campuses asking tough questions like name the first president or who did we fight in World War II, and you see that Americans don't know history. But the film record will determine the Vietnam War, and right now we've got Apocalypse Now, Deer Hunter, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, films that show the American fighting man in a very negative way, American leadership in a negative way, and our Vietnamese allies even worse. And they're just not right.
So, as entrepreneurs, we all want to figure out a way to make our mark and change the world a little bit and hopefully build a business. Is Ride the Thunder a business?
It started out sort of as a business. I mean, I've invested pretty much all my life savings in this thing, and it can still, I'm not sure if I'm going to get my money back or not, but at this point, I'm not worried about that so much as I am about fighting this battle. America is at a crossroads. We are losing the cultural war. I was listening, here's a tie-in for entrepreneurs. Yesterday, I was listening to my favorite economist, Brian Westbury of First Trust. He was being interviewed by Hugh Hewitt, talking about the economy. Of course, we've had a bad week in the stock market. Everyone's worried about China. Westbury is the ultimate optimist, and I love him for that. He said, if it weren't for entrepreneurs, it's the entrepreneurs in America that are keeping us afloat. It's not government. The only reason the economy is where it is and not worse is because of guys like you and everybody out there who's smarter, taking intelligent risk and pushing the envelope. Were it not for that group of men and women in America, we'd really be in the tank.
Well, in making a movie, you've got to hire people to run the run the show, and I see it as a very much an entrepreneurial venture. And in your wealth management business, you help so many entrepreneurs to help build their businesses with 401k plans and things like that. So, I mean, is there any advice that you would give to entrepreneurs right now, and that we're sitting there in a time where it's tumultuous out there in the economy? Is there any advice that you might give to us?
Well, stay the course. I mean, this is not a sprint; it's a marathon. Obviously, when you look at the long-term history of America, it's not wise to bet against America. I mean, I do think America is still the hope of the world. We're we're not. I mean, we're the least bad house in a bad neighborhood, perhaps. I mean, things are dicey out there. It's a scary world, but America is still the hope. People are breaking down walls to get here. No one's dying to get into North Korea or China or Russia. They're dying to get out.
What do you see as the biggest geopolitical risks that we have out there right now? What should we be worried about?
Well, I don't know if that's a good question. Certainly, I think the Chinese represent the single biggest risk to us. Well, right next to radical Islam. I mean, how do you stamp that one out? I don't have the answer to that. It's not by integrating women into Marine Corps boot camp and OCS like they announced this week. I mean, that's why America's in trouble. We've forgotten. Political correctness, I think, there you go. There's the answer. Political correctness is what's killing America. The good guys have become the bad guys. We're Christians. I like to quote Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. We have become a nation where the good guys have become the bad guys. We're celebrating the wrong things. Selfies. I mean, fantasy football. Who are the heroes? I mean, Kim Kardashian? Come on. The real heroes are the men and women who take real risk to protect our freedom. And then in the business community, those who are creating opportunities for all of us to increase or improve our situations.
How much of an advantage is it for America to have the free enterprise market?
Absolutely advantage. And I go back to my Vietnamese experience. Perhaps the biggest blessing in all this is the number of new Vietnamese friends I've made. When the war ended, 2 million people fled Vietnam because they did not want to live their lives under communist rule. And these people had to risk their lives. Estimates range from 250,000 to 500,000 people died leaving Vietnam in boats. Now, things have to be pretty dire for you to be willing to do that. So we got all the risk takers. The risk takers come here. That's what made America great, taking risk. You're a risk taker. And we want to celebrate those guys. But the Vietnamese, when they have come here, Mark, they've done so well. I'm so proud of them. Typical of a Vietnamese family, and it's very typical. Mom and dad come here, work in low-level jobs, janitors, what have you, so that kids can go to school. I was in Hawaii at Christmas. I had a waiter, a couple years younger than me, older than you, waiting on me. His daughter was a nurse, his other daughter was a pharmacist, and his son was at Johns Hopkins Medical School. He's a waiter. I love that. That story is repeated time and again. They're not at all uncommon. They're very common in the Vietnamese community. I say send more people like that here. It'll make America better. The Vietnamese have enriched our country big time.
Yeah, they've overcome so much. Now, in making a movie, it couldn't have been easy. What kind of challenges have you faced in making your movie?
Well, some I won't go into here. There have been a lot, but it doesn't. There's a great line I heard recently from a Scottish poet. I am sore wounded but not dead. I will lay me down a while to bleed, and then I will rise again to fight. Well, let me tell you, when you're making a movie, especially if you're not a movie person, you're going to get knocked down a lot. You just got to get back up and get in the fight. And that's the same thing with people in business. You're going to get knocked down. You got to get back up.
Well, you opened strong when you opened your movie. Tell us about the opening and where you see the movie going from here.
Well, we had a great opening in Westminster, California last year. We had the you can define things favorably in any way you can, but we had the highest revenue per screen of any movie that weekend in the U.S. Big deal. It was 2 screens. But the Vietnamese community loves it. The Vietnam veterans, the American Vietnam veterans especially, love the movie. It's very affirming, very healing. The challenge we face going forward is getting the message out. We've done a number of cinematic releases. What we're finding is we're probably going to go towards maybe the Netflix-type market as we proceed to reach more people.
It sounds like we're kind of catching you on the film right in the middle of your battle.
Yeah, we're still battling.
Yeah.
It's a battle every day. Again, it's a cultural battle, Mark, because in our film, for instance, we talked about this earlier, we point out that people like Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland have blood on their hands. And most young people don't even know about that. Even people from that age, from that era, had forgotten until they saw our film. Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland were part of an organization called FTA, which stood, they said Free the Army, but it was really F, you know what, the Army. And we have video of Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland at the end shouting, F the Army, F the Navy, F the Marine Corps. They encouraged American fighting men to disobey orders, things like that.
You have a tremendous vocabulary, and if you had one word to describe Jane Fonda, what would it be?
Perfidious.
Now, what is? I have no idea what that means.
Treasonous. I mean, she's evil. She's a liar and a cheat, and she should be in prison. She's a traitor.
And you heard it here on Entrepreneurs Unlimited. I'm Mark Haney. We will be back with Richard Botkin, author, filmmaker, on KHTK Sports 1140 streaming live podcast and YouTube at haneybiz.com.
Once again, here's Mark Haney.
Welcome back. We are here with Richard Botkin, author, filmmaker, expert on the war in Vietnam, and venerable wealth manager. So, Richard, you're sitting in the plaster concrete chair here at the KHTK studios. It's the plaster concrete chair. It's guaranteed to crack eventually.
Oh, that's very good.
We guarantee that nobody will ever steal the concrete. So welcome back to this segment, and we've been talking about your book and your movie and Ride the Thunder, but I want to talk a little bit about Richard Botkin, the man. As a Marine officer, you were responsible for leading the finest of men. How does your experience in the Marines manifest itself in Richard Botkin, the businessman, Richard Botkin, the father?
Well, I think that the most important decisions in my own life that I made, first of all, was my decision for faith. I think that's the most important one you can make because it has eternal consequences. The next most important one should have been who I married, but it was becoming a Marine officer because had I not become a Marine, I wouldn't have been blessed with the great wife that I have and the life that I have. But having been a Marine officer blesses me every day. I wanted to be a Marine since I was a young boy, since I was 7. And the Marine Corps represents, I think, still today, the very best in things like character development and the things that really matter in a relationship. The Marine Corps is recognized today, I believe, because it has stayed true to those basic tenets. And at the same time, the Marine Corps is the most forward-thinking of all the services. When you go back to Marine Corps University at Quantico, Virginia, and you talk to the officers there, you see that they're using the best of their ideas. The Marine Corps has evolved and innovated while remaining true to its core principles. I mentioned earlier, this week, the Secretary of the Navy is forcing the Marine Corps finally to integrate boot camp and officer candidate school, which I think is a disaster in the making, putting women in combat units. If it was such a brilliant idea, Mark Haney, if it was such a brilliant idea, don't you think that in 6,000 years of recorded history, somebody before the enlightened Americans in the 1990s was when it was first talked about, or now, would have come up with that idea? There is not an example. People talk about the Russians in World War II. They had a couple of snipers. They talk about Israel. It's completely different. Those are not good examples. It will not work. It's a recipe for disaster. And we can only get by with that for so long because of a technological edge we have. But if we go up against Chinese infantry, North Korean infantry, it's going to be
That's with the integration of officers in boot camp. You're talking about women?
They will put women officer candidates with male. And we talk with young Marcus Haney. I mean, I seem to recall that when I was 18 to 25, there were certain body parts that worked more effectively than they do now as an old man. You put young men in with young women, you're going to have leadership problems out the kazoo, and you're going to have serious problems that will manifest in ways we can't even comprehend right now.
But the values that are ingrained in Richard Botkin that were developed and you're obviously passionate about your military service and what you've learned from that and how it shaped your philosophy. How does that affect you as a wealth manager or as somebody who's trying to rally support for your ventures? Well,
with the film especially, having been a Marine gives me some credibility. Again, not being a combat veteran initially bothered me. When you go in the Marine Corps, you go in the Marine Corps because you want to go kill communists or fight for your country. It took me a while to get over the fact that I was just born at a time, and I was lucky. I didn't realize it for a while. I thought I missed something because so many of our veterans that have been in combat are still paying the price and carrying burdens that the rest of us won't carry. They can't unsee or unfeel or unexperience what they experienced. So we owe them for what they did, the price they paid. Having said all that, to me, having been a Marine blesses me every day. The contacts, the credibility it gives me that I really didn't even earn or deserve, especially in working with others when making this film.
What does the term Semper Fidelis mean to you?
Well, Semper Fidelis is always faithful, and I think it's a term that Marines hold near and dear to their hearts.
Does it make you think of any experience in the Marines or any people specifically?
Well, I know hundreds of Marines now, maybe 1,000, but I was not in combat, so I can't tell you that, yeah, there I was with my last bullet and bayonet and did the bayonet charge or something like that. But again, just the notion of serving in a worthy cause with great guys in a tough situation, there's something to that.
Besides the man upstairs, you've obviously got a very committed relationship there. Your wife Sharon and Andrew and Evan, you got a great family. Beyond them, whom do you feel the most faithful to?
My friends, you and close friends whom I have gone into spiritual battle with or business battle with in this film. We've assembled some investors, but we've also assembled a really incredible group of Vietnamese who are especially committed to this because they have suffered mightily to get to where we are. And outside the Vietnamese community, Mark, there are very few people familiar with what they went through to get here. Many Americans just know their Vietnamese nail lady or something like that. Well, next time, if there are ladies listening, when you go to your nail lady, ask them their life story. It'll curl your hair. These people paid a price to be here.
And we've been talking about New Year's resolutions. You probably heard the beginning of the show. We're kind of joking around a little bit about New Year's resolutions. Any New Year's? Now, a guy like you don't have any bad habits. See, I have bad habits. I like my bad habits. And you don't have bad habits. You don't use foul language. You don't drink.
No. Yeah,
you don't. I mean, how do you set a New Year's resolution?
Well, there have been some challenges in the last year. Again, we're not going to get into here. I've got to overcome some of these things and especially get the film on track so that it can have impact for our country. We're running out of time. In terms of Vietnam veterans, we're losing 400 of them a day. I want these guys to die knowing that they've been vindicated. I want these guys to die with a happy heart to know, hey, America finally gets it, that their sacrifices were worthwhile. In our film, we show more of the Vietnamese side of things and their thankfulness for being here. I think when American veterans see that, it gives more value. When they understand, they weren't just fighting there to stop communism or what, but when they personalize their experience or what it meant, it gives it more value. And that's the feedback we've gotten from the veterans so far who have seen it. And that's something that really validates what we're trying to do.
You bet. Great progress on your book is everywhere. It's ubiquitous, to use one of your words. The film will eventually be there. Right now, it's you're going through your battles and getting it placed at different strategic locations, and eventually will be on DVD or Netflix. But looking ahead in 2016, we're in January. You're looking ahead for the rest of the year. When you think about our country and the world at large, what do you see as the prediction? Is there any Richard Botkin prediction that you can make? I mean, what do you?
I'm praying for some leadership in our country. I think I don't want to be too political. By the way, Barack Obama went to my high school in Hawaii, although he's younger than me. I've stopped donating money to that high school since then. But I think
let's not get political.
Yeah, let's not get too political. But I mean.
So, okay, the race for the White House is fairly crowded. Which of the candidates best exemplify your values?
Anybody but Barack Obama, or excuse me, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders.
Is there anybody on the GOP side? Who do you predict? If you're making a prediction, who are you predicting to win?
I haven't invested in that too much, but I would vote for Donald Trump if he is the guy. A lot of people say, something about him. But I would vote. I think his willingness to step up. Again, I said earlier, political correctness is killing this country. That's why Donald Trump has struck a chord with so many. We're sick of being told that we're racist or that we're homophobic. I mean, again, woe to those who call evil good and good evil. The good guys have become the bad guys. Come on. The traditional values that made America great still hold if we would just subscribe to them. So,
what do you think will be the biggest surprise on the geopolitical front? What do you expect?
Well, boy, if I could.
That's unexpected.
Yeah. I do think, and I don't mean to sound too dour here, but I think at some point in the future, some bad guy is going to explode a nuclear device in the United States. I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That scares the heck out of me, but what else can you do about it but pray and hope that our police forces and intelligence assets can stop these guys. They probably already have. We don't know about it.
You know, as entrepreneurs, we think about, you got all this crazy stuff out there, and I've given this advice a few times that we got to figure out a way to multitask where you have this unwavering belief that in the end, everything's going to be okay, but bad things are going to happen, but you have to keep pressing on, and you have to multitask, and that's what we do with this radio show. We know that there's bad things happening and the world's not right in so many ways, but you just press along and do what you can do. You make a difference in your own way, and you are doing that, Richard, with your book, with shaping the way Americans view the war in Vietnam. And one of your favorite proverbs, or one of my favorite proverbs that you share, starts like this: as iron sharpens iron. Tell us about that.
So one man sharpens another. That's Proverbs 27:17. That I think one of the things we've lost in America, Mark, is an appreciation for manhood. I think we have sissified American men. There's no difference between men and women. Well, yes, there is. And men need to lead in certain ways. And there are certain things only men can do, and there's certain things only women can do. And why shouldn't we just celebrate those differences and accept them? But there's something about good men working together, and that's like with combat. Being part of a transcendent cause, being a Marine, being involved in important faith things, or being involved in trying to advance entrepreneurship, those are important things. They're bigger than you. They're bigger than me. That's what people need to have. They need to have their own transcendent cause that makes a difference.
I'm Mark Haney. You're listening to Entrepreneurs Unlimited. I've been here with Richard Botkin. Thanks for being on the show, Richard. Coming up in a moment, we're going to meet Craig Powell, President and CEO of RF Biocitics, a locally based manufacturing company that has safety food equipment in the process. I'm Mark Haney. You're listening to Entrepreneurs Unlimited. We'll be back in just a moment.
Once again, here's Mark.
Welcome back. And let's visualize for a moment here. Let's think about 2016. It's December 31st, 2016. The press release comes out, and it's about you and your company. And what's it going to say? How's your story going to read? Is your company going to achieve record sales because of some great pickup you made along the way? Did you tackle the industry by storm? Did your company see another record year? Or was it the same old, same old? Yeah. Showed up, did a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Same old, same old. Let's think about our story for 2016. What's the theme? Have you created a theme for your business, for your venture? Maybe there's a theme song. Tom, for you, you got a theme song for your, what are you going to look like at 2016, December 31st? What's your theme song?
I'm going to flip this on its ear just for a second because you make a really good point. I mean, you're talking about your vision, execution, and how you see yourself a year from now. And while somebody that owns a single business is going to struggle with that because, there's struggles in that. What are you going to do? Because you own multiple businesses, which means you have to look at it from so many different angles and they're all at kind of different stages. That's a very difficult thing to do. I really, I think about that sometimes. And I'm like, my God, what is going through this guy's head in any given minute? Because really your hands are in so many different things. It's got to be very, very challenging.
My personal theme this year, and I think it's a theme for all of our businesses, is stronger. Pound for pound, we're going to be stronger. Each of our businesses is going to grow. Each of our businesses is going to be more profitable. Each of our businesses is going to be stronger pound for pound. This isn't the year of excesses. This is the year of staying true to form and staying true to our commitments, our resolutions. And one of the things that we do at Haney Biz is we write things down, right? We've talked about that on this show. Write them down and revisit it. And we've created a system that it's called the Rockstar Checklist. I think you know that my business partners are rock stars.
Absolutely.
Right? If I'm going to go into business with somebody, if I'm going to choose a CEO for my company, that guy is going to be a rock star. He may be a little more rock and roll, but he may be he may like the slow dance type stuff, but you know what? He's a rock star, and we've created a rock star checklist, and really it's about accountability. It's about writing things down. It's about laying out what you're going to do for 2016 and then finding a way to execute on that. So I think for us, it's going to be a year about execution. And, I brought the Rockstar checklist. Yeah, we have so many companies. We got security, real estate, concrete, landscaping, limos. Marcus, Marcus is the main man on the limo company. You had to perform the Rockstar checklist. How was that?
Oh, it was great. It was a great exercise.
And you got to set some goals?
Yep, got to set some goals and put down our thoughts for 2016 and what we're going to do. And speaking of what a theme song for this year is, The Only Way I Know by Jason Aldean comes to mind because, hey, we're not going to stop till everything's done.
That's the only way I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the team attitude that we have. And so the Rockstar checklist is really about the numbers, accountability of the numbers, and really about teamwork, communication, accountability on our communication rhythms, which we know helps to build teamwork. So that's really it. And I think as we look at 2016, we got to ask ourselves: Are we showing up for the participation ribbon this year, or are we going for the trophy? Right. So, and what's a trophy look like as we think about what this year looks for ourselves? What's it look like as an entrepreneur? Is that an extra work truck? Right, with your name on the side? Is that adding 3 new employees so that you can take on a new venture? Is that a Christmas bonus for your employees, finally? Maybe you and your business partner want to get a place in Tahoe. I don't know what the trophy looks like for you, but I think as we approach 2016, at least in our company, and I think with a lot of our listeners, it's not really about the participation trophy or the participation ribbon. It's about coming home with something we're really proud of.
Right.
And so victories. I think that ties back to the opening of the show, and really when we talk about commitment. We got the New Year's resolutions, which are fun, and the word resolution it sounds like the word commitment, but so many times we go to the gym, and by the end of January, we're not there anymore.
Right? People do fall short.
So when does a resolution become a commitment? When does, a true commitment? And when does a good intention become a firm decision? Good intentions, Marcus, you call them wish commitments, right? Good intentions.
I remember
right?
that. I like that.
Wish commitments. Good intentions. It's like people trying instead of just committing to doing. Good intentions are like wetting your pants, right? It feels nice and warm, but it doesn't really do anything. You know what I mean?
Oh no, here we go again.
You can talk the talk, you can cry wolf, nobody believes you unless they see you in action. So I think commitments really are what creates change in this world. Commitments to writing a book, to changing the way America views Vietnam, like Richard Botkin shared with us. Commitments, that's how foundations are built. Commitments take courage. Commitments don't, resolutions, hey, throw some stuff out there. But commitments take courage, and you write them down, they mean something to you. Once you write it down and you start telling people, it is a commitment. And I can tell you right now, to my business partners, to my rock stars, to my friends, to my family, to my community, I am committed to being there for you. I'll share my Rockstar checklist with anybody out there. Get a hold of me, Marcus, Tom, and we'll be glad to help you. We want to help businesses in Sacramento grow, thrive, and reach their dreams. Never above you, never below you. Always by your side.
The bomb's busting.